We tend to remember the feedback that hurts, the feedback that is true, the feedback that maybe have a sliver of truth that we want to reject, or the feedback that is bad, quote unquote, right? We tend to completely obscure all the great feedback. And that was my experience.
Do I really think that they're trying to be hurtful? No. Do I need to take this personally? Do I have to believe it? I don't have to believe it. I don't have to agree. I don't have to do whatever this person is saying. How can I use this though? Is there any part of this that might be true? Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. This is Emilia. I am so excited to talk to you and everyone that's listening, have you join the conversation that Bianca and I are going to have today, which is around fearing feedback. So when I was in corporate America, I worked in the biotech sphere and I jumped in full-fledged and was super excited because of the industry. I got really, really excited to work there. I was this young, ambitious, wanted to really climb the corporate ladder, and I worked primarily in IT. So one of the things that I made sure that I communicated with my managers at the time was that personal development and personal growth was really important to me. Big surprise for anyone listening to the show, right? And so all their leadership development programs, all of their coaching programs, like I was all in, right? All in, and trying to get that was like, it was like better than a paycheck for me. So why I mentioned that is because one of the things that I was super grateful for that this company, one company in particular, had done was they linked up with a company, an organization that allowed us to get what's called a 360-degree review, feedback review. So what did that look like? Not only was there a consultant that came in and kind of got pretty much interviewed each and every single person on our team, but what they would do is they also interviewed everyone that we worked with. So you could choose the individuals that ultimately would give you feedback, but like ultimately you also had to have people in there that like you didn't really know too well. And I had, I want to say I had like 14 people on my roster that I had asked that would they be willing to give me feedback. Now, this is from the chief technology officer I'm talking to someone who is just a contractor that we've engaged with. So I had made sure that my feedback was all different levels of organizational hierarchy, power, etc., but also more specifically, like really tried to get that 360 feedback review so that ultimately I could take someone who's just gotten to know me, their input, and someone who's gotten to know and work with me, and everyone in between. So in comparison, some of my peers had like 5 people. So man, be careful what you ask for. That's all I'll have to say on this. Just be careful what you ask for. And that I'm literally echoing a quote from my manager at the time. I have a big heart for him still. He's such a sweetheart. And he was someone that really saw how eager and ambitious I was, but also recognized how that was going to be rubbed off in the culture of people who had been there. And he tried to warn me a few times, but ultimately he had said that directly. He said, Emilia, be careful what type of feedback you ask for, because of the fact that once you're aware of the feedback, you get kind of frozen in this moment of, do I want to change this? If it's something that I don't like, if it's something that's not productive to my team members, if it's not productive to the path that I want to venture upon, or is it something that I'm okay and willing to accept and not change whatsoever? And that point couldn't have been more right. So B, we get this interview. I get interviewed, all that happy jazz, tell my dreams, my goals, my ambitions to this consultant. And then I'm patiently waiting. I want to say it was like a week before I got the feedback of the 14 different people. They start trickling. We're not allowed to see. My consultant gets all the feedback, summarizes it, pulls the names of all the people who had given it. And essentially you're rated on different scales of like capabilities. So from self-confidence to competence in your arena. And so it was a lot of feedback to parse through. But then there was like a comment section. Anything you want this person to know that would be beneficial for them, you believe in their career trajectory. So fast forward like 2 weeks after this whole process closes, I'm sitting down and my coach at the time, he hands me the packet the packet of the feedback. And I'm telling you this packet because
was like a
obviously I had
book.
to go above and beyond. Literally, it was like a book of not only the quantitative metrics that we were tracking for the emotional capital. So it's like an EQ assessment and leadership assessment, et cetera, et cetera. Now, no surprise, this might sound arrogant, but I scored really, really high on self-confidence. I scored really, really low at the time with it was vulnerability. It was so brutal. Not surprised.
That tracks. That tracks.
At all. Yeah, that tracks. So at the time, right, I'm in IT too. So I'm like hardcore nerd Emilia, very ambitious. Honestly, like ambition is awesome and I'm super determined and I look like this and I know that that's a factor. And so people hated me. People really hated me. They did not like me whatsoever. But there was a lot of people that were rooting for me and other people who loved me. And that's the truth about the world, right? We're all going to have people who love, like, and hate us. And they're going to, when you give them the opportunity to give feedback, they have been waiting for that opportunity. So I get this packet, right? And I'm like, okay, everything tracks. There was like only a couple of things. And the coach asked, like, is there anything that surprised you? And I'm like, honestly, no. But what kind of hurt for a moment was definitely seeing the mirror in the actual pudding. So the data of the vulnerability was really low, right? And most importantly, what I said was when I looked at the comments of what my peers and what my managers and what leadership and contractors said, there were specific people who I know in cross-functional teams that I had worked with who hadn't really gotten to know me. They really just saw me kind of sitting on the sidelines and me being eager beaver trying to contribute to conversations. That commentary, that feedback was difficult for me to receive because of the fact that it was very much this wait until you're spoken to, don't volunteer perspectives or input. We don't necessarily want to change things and you have to kind of know your place and like kind of stuff like that. And that type of feedback was really difficult for me to receive because another one was like, know your audience, aka when the elders are in the room, shut up. So yeah, all different types of feedback. But then there was also great feedback that was like, Emilia is incredible. Anyone who's there to work with her is so lucky to have her. She's a natural born leader, blah, 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 right? Super self-confident. Anyone with her on her team is going to exceed, excel, etc. And then there was like people that just really didn't know me and was like, she is like the brightest light in the room, changes the energy, all that stuff. So you have feedback all over the place. It's that one thing that we remember. Go.
Oh my God. Thank God it was you who got feedback like that and not somebody else. Because if me back in the day, if I got feedback like that, there'd be a mess to clean up. I'll just leave it at that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So we tend to remember, and this is the human brain, we tend to remember the feedback that hurts, the feedback that is true, the feedback that maybe have a sliver of truth that we want to reject, or the feedback that is bad, quote unquote, right? We tend to completely obscure all the great feedback. And that was my experience. And so for all of our listeners, right? How do you not fear feedback? Not everyone is going to be willing to give you feedback. But when you do open up that door, like my manager had said, be careful what you wish for. And I think that that's a true but a very important statement to analyze simply because we need feedback in order to get better. That is a byproduct of the feedback loop. And I also know that we need to be mindful of developing the emotional architecture to be able to receive that feedback in a meaningful way.
It's also assuming that you do want growth.
Yeah, fair.
Because me back in the day, I told myself I wanted growth, but any lick of feedback that I got, it was brutal. It hit me right in the not good enough feels. It completely would destroy my, like, the 2% sense of confidence that I had back in the day. It would have destroyed me getting feedback like that. And I would have convinced myself of a narrative that, like, no, I actually do want growth and this and that, but then actually getting it is a different story. I think a lot of people, they're either in the realm of like they don't actually want to grow, so they can't get feedback, or they do want to grow, but feedback is really, really scary because what does it mean when you hear other people's opinions? And how do you not overly personalize it? How do you
Yeah.
make sure that this feedback that you're getting doesn't really destroy you and doesn't really do harm? Because like you and I struggled with that
So
a
true.
lot when we first started
Yeah.
Evolve. Like I didn't necessarily show it. Like I didn't say anything, but like you could see by my energy as soon as you said something, I shrank so
Yeah.
badly, and I would struggle really bad for like a few days, if not a week or more, when there was a harsh truth told, or when you said something really kindly, but it hit my core wound of, and my deep core belief of being not good enough, and fear of abandonment, and all of these really deeply challenging beliefs and feelings that I had. So, for anyone listening who resonates with that, it's like
Mhm.
they want it, because if you're listening to this show, you probably do want growth, and you probably
Mhm.
do want to be good at getting feedback. Two questions. Number one, how do you parse out what feedback is actually adaptive and helpful and accurate versus what feedback to take with a grain of salt or reject?
Yep.
And then number two, how do you not let that feedback do harm? How do you, in a productive, healthy, adaptive way, take that feedback and kind of regulate yourself when you're getting it?
Great questions. So the first one, it was really interesting because the coach was like, "Man, I've never seen anyone score so high at your age on these competencies. In all of my 30 years, I've never seen anyone do this." So I was like, "Ooh, that's nice, right?" But I didn't fuse with that feedback. And that's the first thing.
Mm.
He also said, I also know based on the commentary, like, I really want you to be mindful of taking this personally because it can be really hard. And it kind of felt like he was babying me. I was like, give me the freaking feedback, dude. That was my protectors that was fearful of like, oh my God, what is going to come down? Am I really like all these narratives?
Am
So
I
the
that
first
bad?
Right. Am I that bad? Have I really like destroyed these relationships and everyone's just masking up and pretending like they're my friends? Oh no. High school 2.0. Let's go. But the first thing is that I would say with anyone, knowing feedback and how important it is to growth, knowing that it is an absolute essential element of growth, you do have to get better at developing this skill set of not fusing with the feedback. And that's the first thing. When you receive
Good or bad?
feedback, good or bad, exactly, fusing with the feedback, aka let me take this feedback and personalize it, make it something that's holistically about my identity, my worth as a person. That fusion doesn't allow you to actually objectively observe. And if you fuse with feedback, your central nervous system is essentially getting fused with these narrative and creates meaning of that feedback from a fight, flight, freeze, stress response, whatever your go-to is. And so the meaning that you're making by fusing with the feedback, both great, quote unquote, and quote unquote negative or unproductive, it becomes what's called a blended state. And so you're not really able to see objectively what the little golden nugget that would be productive in the first place for you to receive. So that's number one. The number two element of that is around the aspect of how do you know that it is actually helpful feedback? When someone's giving you feedback, like we have this saying, everyone, opinions
Has
are
an
like
opinion.
a-holes. Exactly. Everyone's got one, right? And sometimes it's the loudest people that don't really have merit to their feedback or their opinion. So be mindful of that. How you can tell that feedback can be productive is the place that it's coming from. So meaning, I know you really care about improving your speaking skills. And because of that, I want to make sure that you're in a place to receive feedback. So number one, you get consent, and it's from a place that this person who's giving you feedback knows what goals you have shared with them and how this feedback connects to that. And they make that clear from the beginning. So the place that is coming from, and they're requesting your consent to receive feedback, because you might not be in a great place to receive feedback. And the person who really cares about you, that wants to give this feedback so that it is productive, wants to make sure that you can receive it because they genuinely care about you. Someone who's not, and just giving feedback to give feedback for feedback's sake to make them feel better about themselves. They don't care about how it connects to your goals. They don't take that into consideration. When they give you the feedback, they're just off the cusp. They certainly don't make sure that it connects to any goal or intention or desire that you set. They just leave that open-ended and vague. And they make sure actually that you're not in a great state, and it's kind of used as a tool to kick you down. And that's deconstructive feedback. That is someone, unsolicited opinions, unsolicited advice. That happens all the time. And those are the two primary things.
I would say there is a middle ground to that, though, because I've had people in my family try to offer me feedback because they thought they knew what I wanted. And they're like,
fair.
well, I know you want this, so here's this. And it's like, well, like,
Yeah, you can correct them.
But you didn't need to say it like that. Or maybe you could have approached it differently. Or like, I radically disagree because you don't actually know that that's what I want. So
yeah,
I put up a post about this today. Be very, very mindful of whose guidance and advice you're taking, because that person might have unconscious intentions that they don't know that they have, that might not really be helpful to you or serving you. They might be saying it to meet one of their own unconscious needs.
right.
The way that I started to get good at taking feedback, granted, I'm not perfect at it by any stretch. Like, I've said this
You've
to
gotten
clients
so better,
before.
though, B.
If Emilia says something to me, I know she's coming from such a good place, and I know she cares about me. So it's easier if I'll use one of my siblings. If one of my siblings told me the same thing, I'd want to deck them in the face. Like, it's it's radically different.
We all have that with our siblings, I feel like.
I obviously never would. We don't advocate for violence here, but like
Mm-hmm.
the feelings, because of my old conditioning patterns with my siblings that I'm working on, like those old wounds would come up and it would impact me differently. But one of the ways that I've gotten really good at taking feedback is pausing before I say anything and kind of just sitting and asking, like, what is the intention that this person has for telling me this? When it's Emilia, I know she's genuinely coming from such a good place. And it might not be in the moment either, because Emilia has told me things and I got upset at first. And then, like, after a little bit, I'd be like, yeah, actually, you know what? That makes sense. Same thing with my siblings. Like, I have gotten better at getting feedback from them. And it's like, okay, do I really think that they're trying to be hurtful? No. Do I need to take this personally? Do I have to believe it? I don't have to believe it. I don't have to agree. I don't have to do whatever this person is saying. How can I use this, though? Is there any part of this that might be true? Is there any part of this that I can make relevant to my life? So, I don't know. I'll use an example from a long time ago. My brother used to tell me that I was extremely loud, which, not wrong. I am extremely loud. I'm a very, like, boisterous person, right? But the way that he would say it was very aggressive. But now in reflection, I can look back at it and say, okay, I didn't like the way that he said it, but was there any part of that that I can take? Is there any part of that that was true? And it's like, well, yeah, I am loud. I am. I'm a very loud person. I have a very big energy. I'll say that. Is there any part of it that's true? Yeah, this part of it is true. Is there anything I can do to use this? Yeah, you know what? I can show up like this because this actually is in alignment with the person that I want to be. Cool. Go from there.
Yeah.
I love what you said, Em, about not attaching the good or the bad feedback to yourself and not fusing with it, because this is a problem that so many people have, where it's like we only want good and we try to get rid of the bad. And so when the good is there, we become so attached to it and it becomes so part of our identity that we can't tolerate bad. So we're always searching for the good. And this is in any circumstance.
Yeah.
And we can't tolerate bad. You don't want to attach to either because both are harmful. It's like chasing highs all the time. That's not healthy. That's not adaptive either. So for anyone listening to this, I know there was a lot that we kind of said in this episode. So number one, make sure you subscribe. And number two, I would listen to this episode a few times. I know I'm definitely going to. But there's a lot of golden nuggets in here of things that you can do. And honestly, this is very much a mindset shift. True. Of, you know, shifting into the type of person that is more thoughtful and open-minded regarding these concepts. So, easier said than done. We fully understand that. I'm like 7 years into this, like when I really started trying to get good at taking feedback, and I'm not great at it. So it's a practice. And if you let it be a practice, then there doesn't have to be an end point, and you can just continuously get better, which is exciting.
It is.
If you guys struggle with this, if this is something that you want help with, please reach out. Emilia and I are both taking one-on-one coaching and therapy clients. We have the You Do You program. There's so many free opportunities here at Evolve if you're not ready to make that investment in yourself. There's so many choices for you here, and there's a place for everybody. What's your episode suggestion?
My episode suggestion is number 351, How to Make Friends with Pain. And my closing sentiment is this mindset shift around the mantra, which is let feedback fascinate you. When you have curiosity when it comes to feedback, you're out of that triggered state, and meaning making can be more objective. B?
Very nice. 331, are you emotionally immature? All right, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye everyone.